Okay, in this video we're going to start looking at section 3.2, which is sealed bids. So these are kind of long problems, so we're going to go through some of the basics first and then we'll do a handful of examples. Alright, so steps for sealed bid. The first step you have is the bidding, and this is going to be where each player makes a bid with his honest assessment of an item's value. Now, when you're making bids, they are anonymous and they are sealed so nobody else can see what you've bid. All right, then once we've made the bids, we go to the allocation. So each item is going to go to the highest bidder. So it is possible for a player to get more than one item. And it's also possible for a player to get nothing. All right, then we have step 3. This is the first settlement. So we're going to calculate each player's fair share by adding together his bids and dividing by the number of players. I'm going to put a big star next to this because the number of players is not always the same as the number of items. So you have to be really careful that you divide by the right thing. All right, if the value of the items the player receives in step 2 is greater than his fair share, that means that they got more than they deserve. So what they have to do is he is going to pay the difference to the estate. If the value of the items is less than the fair share, that means they're still owed money, so he gets the difference from the estate. All right, so that takes us to step 4. This is division of the surplus. So once people have paid into the estate and paid out, there'll be a little bit of money left over. Okay, so the surplus is the excess money paid to the estate by the players. Once we figure out the surplus, it is to be evenly divided among all the players. All right, so then finally our last step is going to be the final settlement. So each player takes his items and either pays or gets his portion of the cash. All right, so we'll do several of examples going through these 5 steps to kind of help you out. 2 limitations of sealed bids. Number 1, players must have enough money to play the game, which is often a limitation. And number 2 is players must accept that every item has a price. All right, so nothing can be considered priceless. All right, your grandmother's pearls or whatever, everything is going to have a price. All right, so now let's move on to our first example. Let me see if I can find that one real quick. All right, so here's our first example. All right, so we have Anne, Deb, and Clara are dividing 4 household items using the method of sealed bids. So the table below shows their bids on each item. So notice on here there are 3 players, but there are 4 items. So for 3 players, when we find the fair share, we are going to divide by 3. Okay, so what we do is we take all of Anne's bids and we add them all together. So you can put that in your calculator, and that adds up to be 990. I don't know if y'all can hear my cat behind me. He has the zoomies. He's playing on the floor. All right, so if we go to the second column and add all of Deb's bids up, hers come out to be 900. If we add all of Clara's up, they come out to be 1,200. So in order to calculate the fair share, I have to take that and divide by the number of players. So here's where we have to be careful, because the number of players and the number of items are different. All right, so let's see. Anne's fair share is going to come out to be 330. Deb's will come out 300. And Clara's will come out 400. All right, so we've got the total and the fair shares. Now we're going to figure out who gets what. So for this, we're going to go across the rows. So for example, if we look at the table, we want to give this item to the highest bidder. So it looks like Deb had the highest bid on the table, so she'll get it. On the couch, Anne bid the highest. The TV, Clara bid the highest. And the area rug, looks like Clara bid the highest on that as well. All right, so now we're ready to do the first settlement. And generally, if people make a mistake, they make it here. So you want to be really careful to get this part right. So what we're going to do to figure out the money is we're always going to do fair share minus item. So I'm going to star that because that's kind of important. All right, so if we look at Anne, now we're looking down the column, we can see that Anne gets the couch, which she valued at $180. So to see if she gets any money, we take her fair share, which is $330, and we subtract her item. Okay, and that gives us $150. So what we're saying here is that she is owed $330 from this estate, but she got a couch that was only valued at $180. So she is going to get the difference. So she's going to get $150. Now if we look at Deb, she got the table. So we'll write down her item. Her fair share was $300. And she got a couch worth $300, so she zeroes out. So she doesn't get any money, she doesn't pay any money. And then we come down to Clara. Clara got the TV, and she got the area rug. So her fair share was $400. She got an item worth $250, so we subtract that, and an item worth $510, so we subtract that. So what happens with hers is she comes out in the negative. So when you see a negative, that indicates that they're going to pay that money. So she is going to pay the estate $360. All right, so now we're ready to move on to the surplus. Okay, so the surplus will always be the amount that was paid in minus the amount that people get. So I think of this as like a big pot of money in the middle of the room. We know that Clara put in $360, but then Anne took back out $150. So if we do $360 minus $150, that gives us a surplus of $210. Now remember, this gets divided among all the players evenly. So that comes out to be $70 for each player. All right, so now we're ready to do our final settlement. Let's see if I can get both of these in here. All right, so the items stay the same. We know that Anne still gets the couch. We know that she was getting $150, but now she's going to get an additional $70 from the surplus. So she was getting $150. She gets an additional $70. And that gets her to $220. So she gets $220. Now remember, Deb got the table, but she didn't get or pay any money. So she was at zero, but she's still going to get $70 from the surplus. So now she is going to get $70. All right, so Clara is the trickiest. She gets the TV and the area rug. Now initially she paid $360. So when you're doing these, I want you to take this number here, that's negative, the one that I just highlighted, and I want you to bring it down. So it'll be negative $360 plus $70. So that ends up being negative $290. So think of it as she paid $360 and then someone handed her back $70. So that ends up being a payment of $290. So she pays $290. Now, one nice thing about these problems is they do have a check. Let's see if I can do the check. So for the check, we want to do the gets on one side. So here's the money that they got, 220 plus 70. And we want to see if it equals the pays. So we want to see if that equals 290. And you can check that, and we get 290 equals 290. So if that balances out, you know you did the problem right. My cat's here knocking everything off the desk. Thank you, baby. All right, so on the next video, we'll do 2 more examples of the sealed bids.